Welcome to the DevReady podcast. Joining me on the DevReady podcast today, I have Rohan McCloskey. For those of you that are new here, I'm meeting Rohan for the first time, so we're all going to learn a little bit more about him and GoGenerosity and what it does. So, Rohan, I'll let you take it away.
Great, Anthony. Great to be here. So for me, my actual background is not in technology originally. So this has been new for me. So I've got a whole bunch of things that I've learned on this journey. But my background is hospitality. So I've had like 20 years experience in hospitality. I've worked in really large hospitality places, also owned my own restaurants and all of that. So it was about 2 years ago where I sold my last restaurant and went all in on the startup that I have now, which is GoGenerosity. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've just turned 40, so I've just hit the magic 40s. I am married, 3 young kids, and our youngest child just went to school yesterday. So there you go.
That's a big year then.
It is. Yeah, 3 kids at school is it's nice.
Yeah, I'm sure the house is a bit different. If you're working from home, it's going to be a very different thing. That's probably why you can do the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what got you onto the pivot from working in the hospitality to where you are now? In my mind, without knowing anything, there's the tips system in hospitality, and that may have inspired something, but that's the thread that I can draw.
Yeah, well, you're not far off. For me, it actually, the idea originally came just outside of COVID. So it sounds like such a funny word. Obviously, talking about COVID now feels like forever ago, but it was at that point when our restaurants were struggling. So here in New Zealand, so I'm based in New Zealand, we were completely shut down. So we couldn't operate whatsoever. And it was at that time when the government allowed us to just reopen our restaurants and we were able to do takeaways where we were actually selling all of our food online and we had our own e-com store set up. And I was like, this idea came to me around seeing all of the need in the community. We didn't have the money to then meet the need because we were struggling as a business. And I was like, I wonder if my customers would be interested. If they can still afford to purchase food, then maybe they want to add on $5 or $10 or $20 or whatever the amount is. So we effectively created a little pay it forward campaign where we enabled customers to donate money. But what we promised them was that we would take 100% of their money and we would use it to buy ingredients and food with, in which then we would distribute the food to the charity partners. Yep. So for us, it wasn't about just sending money to charities, although that is a need, of course. It was actually trying to give our customers that tangibility of your money is feeding people, and that's what we do. So that's where the idea got birthed from. That's how it all sort of started. We went through, which I can talk on, but we had a bit of an interesting journey where we were effectively trying to sell into the wrong market for quite some time. It's only been in the last, just under 2 years that we've really focused on e-commerce. E-commerce for us is incredibly scalable, and it means that we currently today have an app on Shopify, and it effectively just replicates the very model that I explained, that customers now have the ability to donate when they go into the checkouts, and then when they're purchasing online, and then 100% of those donations actually get turned into gift cards from the business that they just purchased from, and those gift cards electronically get sent to a charity partner, and then the charity goes and now redeems them and they get access to the product. So for us, it's about adding value to the merchants by we're effectively driving more revenue through the merchants' books. And it's about still then enabling the charities to get access to what they need to be able to help people in the communities. But it really has a commercial aspect to it.
Yeah, so it's not just generic gift cards that they can use on anything. It's more from the partner that they're being purchased from to use on their services.
Correct, goods. That's right. So for example, we have businesses receive anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month in donations from their customers. Wow. And so that is 100% revenue because that is being redeemed by a charity at full retail value. Mm-hmm. A lot of businesses will match dollar for dollar or they'll offer the charity a discount. But for us, it wasn't about trying to enable businesses to be generous. It was actually enabling consumers to be generous everywhere they shop. So one of the big problems that we've found is that often charities are out trying to raise money from people, but the micro amount is just really not tapped into. So it's something where, and we still see it you probably see it in supermarkets and people see it in their local supermarkets where you can round up or leave a small donation. So that's definitely an area in which charities have approached large organizations. But we still found that, if a charity called me up to ask for a donation, you would feel pretty stink if you only gave them $2 or $5 or whatever. Whereas if you're shopping online and it's part of your everyday experience, then it just gives, it's a much easier thing for you to do. But we found that through testing this and now through doing this for quite some time, consumers want to be generous. So we've got, on average, 1 in 15 consumers will donate every single time they shop online.
Oh, wow.
And then depending on the type of store or what they stand for or their values, we'll see those numbers come down to like 1 in 6. And we're talking like over 2 years worth of data as well. So this is not just a little, it's a nice to have, it's a spike, and you see donations and then they drop off. We see the donations increasing and growing month on month, which is really encouraging in terms of consumer behavior.
And I'm assuming that's going to come down to probably a lot of the partners that have the app installed and what sort of retail or what sort of online store they have.
Yeah, it more comes down to the values in which the business stands for, as opposed, like the product has some say in it. But we've got a whole range of merchants on our store which would sell anything from cosmetics to clothing to whether it's women's period care underwear or there's so many things, but we've tested across so many different sites, and even the amount of the donation or the basket size doesn't necessarily directly affect how much a consumer gives. A lot of it is based on what the business stands for, as opposed to just their product directly, or even the recommended retail amount of the product doesn't really have an effect on the donation amount, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, because the most seamless one I've seen is from PayPal. It's as you go through the checkout, there's a little checkbox you tick, and it's round up and donate, like you mentioned. But that even then, that's just rounding up. So you may be 3 cents and maybe 98 cents.
Yes.
And then you don't really have the choice, as far as I can tell, to change that value.
Yeah.
But here it's sort of user controlled, where they decide, I like what you stand for. I like the charity. Is it a charity or is it multiple charities on the receiving end?
Yeah, so at the time, for us, it's each business can display one charity at any given time, and then we would rotate that monthly or annually, depending on the size of the business, how many transactions they do, which ultimately means how much the charity will get from it. So the last thing you want to do is display too many charities, and then they get a check for $50 that month. It's got to be valuable. I think there's definitely something in the consumer. The great thing about a roundup is there's obviously very little to no friction. But you're not really giving the consumer a choice. So for us, it was about enabling the consumer generous, because that's what we really feel like we specialize in, again, without having the friction. But what we find that when you do give consumers the choice, the amount, like it's not uncommon to see $50 amounts or $100 amounts come through, because consumers believe in the product that they're buying and they go, I want someone else to be able to have this. And so then they would round up to $50 or whatever it might be. But there's always the danger with then trying to give too many options to the consumer, trying to display too many charities and things like that. We're so careful in how we deliver that, because now there's friction. As soon as you've got consumer friction or in the carts or wherever it might be, then obviously abandonment increases and things like that. So, we really focus on incredibly simple UX, but giving the consumer the choice, and rather than just having a tick box roundup, it's giving the consumer more understanding of what they're actually, donating to.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because the more options you give to a user, the less likely they are to make a decision. It's like when you're staring at your pantry trying to find something to eat. If you've got too many things open, you're not going to eat anything. You just walk away.
That's right.
You'll come back 10 minutes later and do the same thing again.
Yes.
But yeah, especially in an online journey, the more seamless the flow and the less options there are to choose to be a decision point where someone may leave, the better you're going to be. And I'm sure you probably got that from your learning, because your very first version may have been a roundup potentially. Yeah.
So for us, it was, we did quite a lot of research into it, and it's a pretty untapped space, to be honest. I think donations, it's not seen as a sexy type innovative space, but I think it can be. And I think what we're finding is there's a lot to understand around the consumer behaviors and why they do things. But yeah, we found that even on the early days of building our first version, is that we didn't want anything to take the consumer away to what they were purchasing at the time. So that means no hyperlinks on our products. Like even on our widget, you can't learn more about GoGenerosity from that. Like we're a simple little powered by symbol. Yep. You can't click and learn. Therefore, if you display too many charities, then people want to start learning about the charities, where they're not there. They're there to purchase, and we're just trying to improve and enhance that experience, as opposed to now distracting the consumer to be thinking about something else.
Yeah, because then you also take away from the checkout process from the retail as well. So you may have more abandoned carts, and
that's the problem.
Yeah, you're like not just losing out on the charity, they're losing out on the sale as well.
Exactly. So, and like you said, it's about the balance between like giving them enough information or enough choice without too much of that. And that's a pretty common request. Like for us, it's this balance between listening to our customers when they say, hey, we want multiple charities to be displayed, or we want this. There's a balance between listening to the customer, but then also providing them with, if we say that we're the experts in this space, we then need to provide them with a recommendation based on, yeah, we can do that, but if we do that, you're likely to increase abandonment or friction or whatever it might be. And of course, data helps with that. Like the more we can test that, the more we can go back to them. So yeah, that's a really interesting one, right? Because it's, I think that my background being in service and being in hospitality is always, like the customer's always right. But to a degree, right? Like I think for us, it's about listening to the customer, hearing the customer, learning from the customer, but ultimately not being afraid to say to the customer, but if you do that, this is going to be the result in that, do you still want to do it? And giving them the empowerment to make the decision with the expert advice that you've given them.
In sort of like the hospitality or the retail, the customer's right because there's a set product in front of them, they know what they're doing. This is more like a service and you're going to an expert to understand something. So they don't know what they don't know. So they're not right all the time.
Yes.
As much as people might not like to hear that.
That's right.
And then that's a juggling act to try and justify, which you said, you need data, you need to be able to prove your point, talk to the facts, and just explain, we are recommending this because of X, Y, and Z. You may choose to do the next one, but this is what we're expecting will happen. And then you may reassess in 3 weeks, 3 months, and go, all right, what happened?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Just don't rub it in their face at the end.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I'm sure based on some of the stores you've probably got, you may have some difficult retailers there who think they still know better and will push against what you're saying regardless. We've dealt with that with clients on our end as well. So there's always some clients that either don't value the expertise that we have or what you may have and think they still know best because they've been around long enough to have known stuff.
That's right. And I think then the danger for us, like being a startup, we have to then be careful on what we prioritize in terms of our tech stack and our product roadmap. So, there's that you can't be everything to everyone. I think there has to become a line in the sand moment, which is like, again, taking on feedback, listening to it. If we believe that it can add a genuine value add to our entire customer base, we would then definitely consider. Otherwise, I think we have to be really focused in on, okay, that's nice that that's your feedback or that's what you want, but at this stage, this is what we do, and you sort of have to take it or leave it. But that's a hard one in itself, right? Because no one wants to lose customers, and you want to try and do your best to keep them and do what they want. So I think for us, we've got a few checkpoints into what we sort of weigh that up against as to whether we'd do that or not. Yeah,
you can't have too many like side quests as you're building your core product, otherwise it starts deviating. And if you're just trying to solve a problem for one specific customer, and like you mentioned, unless it doesn't apply to the entire user base or it's for the direction or the vision that you want to take the business, it's not going to serve what you need to get out of the business.
Yes.
And you're better off losing that one customer if they're still not coming along on the journey because they don't understand what you're trying to deliver or the story you're telling potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other things for us is like integrations is a big one for us on Shopify. So, there's various other apps that, customers are using, which we might need to plug into. And being, again, early stage, we've got limited amount of resources. So we actually just, rather than being reactive and go, oh, this customer's using this platform and we now need to integrate with that so we can win that customer. Unless it's like an enterprise size customer where what they're paying makes sense, we just keep a list. We actually just keep a backlog of going, okay, we've potentially missed out on this many customers because we don't integrate with this platform. And then when it becomes financially viable for us, we go, cool, let's build it. And then, so that's probably another way in which we're finding just to like dictate the roadmap around those sorts of things.
Yeah, you need to maintain that backlog and just have, all right, these are all different requirements, different queries that are coming in from clients and things that may be useful in the future. Yep. And then you can start probably adding there's tools that you can have online where you can get people to log the requests or features themselves. Then people can upvote them. But you can just do that simply yourself and just have a count next to each request if you want in Excel and just say, all right, we've had 42 people request this feature out of the backlog. maybe it's time we look at that one. And then you've got some sort of prioritization based on request and criticality coming in already from that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really simple way to do it. From the way you're talking, you seem like a very seasoned founder, not a first-time go-around. You mentioned that there was like something you would have changed if you were doing it again. What are some of those things that you've probably taken those lessons on that have got you to this point now?
Yeah, well, I think that I heard someone say just recently that the ways of learning is you either learn from other people's mistakes and you don't do them, or you learn from your own mistakes, or you don't learn. So like someone's making mistakes and you choose who you learn by. I think for us, it's not to say that there's any regrets in the process. It's more now with knowledge and now knowing and experience, I would have done it differently. So for example, like because my background was hospitality, I felt like I was a very experienced business person. So I felt like my business skills and acumen were of good value in the fact that I'd run successful businesses for quite some time. So I understood, and like even just my experience and my skills was understanding financials and P&Ls and how to like get a business moving forward and being successful financially. When I then got into the startup world, I was partnered with some people that had previous experience. And so for me, as much as there was like my own responsibility in learning how a startup functioned, I was very much listening to other people, thinking that's, obviously how you learn. And at the time when we first started GoGenerosity, it was very much a culture, a mindset around raising capital. Raising capital was what we needed to do. I didn't hear a lot of language around product market fit or understanding the customer or hearing where that was. It was more around raising money became like your success measure. Mm-hmm. And then from then on, that's where it went. So I think that'd be the thing that I would have done differently. Had I had my time again, I would have spent a lot more time on product market fit and understanding, okay, where is our customer? Where is the most frictionless space where they reside? And what product do we need to build to them? Because the irony is that the product idea that we had 5 years ago is the very product that we are rolling out today. It's like that hasn't changed, which is quite interesting. So, sometimes you hear of people that have startup ideas and then that idea evolves into like, where it's, V10 or V20 or what it might be. And although we've made iterations to the app, the actual foundational model of what we first came up with, that hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. So that was really interesting. So for us, it was about spending more time on, just understanding where the customer was and what product market fit actually looked like. I think we could have saved a lot of money by doing that. Instead, we were quite successful in raising money. I probably don't look at raising money as a success measure anymore. I actually look at it, think that if you can get your product to product market fit and you can bootstrap all of that, and you can even get paying customers on board, and then you raise money just to obviously escalate or fast track the sales process, that is very much successful. And you may not even have to. Some companies are great based on the fees in which they charge, that they don't even need to raise money unless they're like growing exponentially. So that's the biggest learn for me is understanding that, and also just knowing who to partner with on those early days, the advice that you're getting from people, just to really like thrash that out and check that, and does that make sense? Is this the right thing for us? One of my other big problems is like I'm a bit of a restless person in the sense that like when I've got an idea, I just want to go straight away. And I think I was probably my own worst enemy, where I didn't really respect the process in terms of taking time to get the product market fit. I just wanted to go. Now I think that was okay if it was just me, because that's a good thing in terms of just like looking into every avenue and then seeing what sticks and what doesn't. The problem is we had raised money and we actually had quite a few people on the team. And so, that was a costly exercise. Now, in hindsight, because of that costly exercise, we're much more productive where we are today. And we actually move at a very, the team is incredibly scaled down. And we've got a great number of customers on the platform, and it's enabled our e-commerce journey to succeed. But so that's probably what I'd say.
So it was as a necessary mistake, because it helped
think
you.
So, yeah.
You learned something from it, so you did the right thing. You did it. It didn't work, but you learned the right lessons from it. which a lot of people don't.
Yeah, I think the lessons are as well that one thing that people have to understand, I think, around raising money is that you can get your business to a place where it's non-investable. So what was initially investable at like a seed round or pre-seed or whatever it might be, or an angel investor round, if you've changed directions or you've pivoted or you're having to rebuild and you've got people sitting on your cap table, unless you just want to give away all the equity in your company, you now don't become investable. So you have to learn the hard way. And that's effectively what's happened to us, that we've got incredible support from current investors that are on our table. But it's very hard for us to go to the open market just based on where we're at in terms of now our ARR versus the stage in our company. So if we were just a 2-year-old company, so that's effectively what we are in terms of our e-com journey. But if we hadn't had the other years of learning before us, we'd be in such a appealing stage for investors right now because of where we're at, our product market fit, and then our scale to where we can grow.
Yep.
And so that would be a learn that I'd say to anyone who's listening that is in that, just when you raise that money, and if you do, just be really careful in what you do, because you potentially, that's how I see most companies fail. It's not because the product wasn't good. It's because they got themselves and they put themselves into a corner where now no one will give them more money because of just where they're at. And so the company dies. You are just relying on investors. Yep. And so your company's only as good for as long as the investors want to keep giving you money. Whereas if you don't have that headache at the start, you can just change it however you want. You can move and you can be quite nimble. So yeah, huge learn.
Yeah, and that's a story I've heard from a lot of people. It's once you start getting investment or chasing the money, then you're continually chasing it, because a lot of the time you may not live up to the metrics that they're expecting of you. And like you mentioned, if you were 2 years old versus 5, that's a huge downside to an investor to see.
Huge.
You've been going for 5 years and you haven't had the traction, whereas 2 years, you're just about to get the traction. But they're just seeing you got funding here and nothing's happened for 5 years. You don't have product market fit. The chance of you succeeding are going to be very low compared to what our past experience has told us. Yeah. It's a very tricky KPI game. That's all you're chasing is just those monthly numbers. Is it enough? And then you have to answer to all of those investors as well, because they're going to start asking questions.
Yeah,
and then they'll be driving direction potentially too, and trying to push you to think where they think they can then get their return.
Yeah, 100%. I think the one area for us that's been a blessing in disguise, because we are a product, even though we're a SaaS product, and although we have a very clear model around trying to generate that return for our investors, we play in the impact space. So we're here to help people. And so the investors that we've attracted to our cap table have been more philanthropic type investors, where they see that by them investing into our business, the return on investment isn't just financial, but it's impact.
Yep.
And so then they've been able to get behind the journey and be patient with us in terms of product market fit. But I think, as much as it sounds great when people go and raise money from VCs and from all of that, they are breathing down your neck, because their entire business model works on you giving them 10x, 20x, 100x valuation or whatever it might be. So all they want to do is see how you're going to deliver that. They don't necessarily care about all of your mistakes along the way. So I think if you are going to raise, going in with the right people that understand the journey and where you're at is just super important. And also being clear about that. That's probably one thing that's worked for me, is just being incredibly transparent. So for me as a founder and as a visionary, it's that balance between pitching the vision of where we want to go, but also balancing that with being completely realistic, with where we are today, and then just giving them the choice that they understand if they invest, they know what they're investing into, as opposed to continually trying to find a new thing to talk, to blow the company up. And create the excitement, just being real and just being really honest with people.
Yeah, the transparency is key with your own team, as well as with the investors and with your clients and partners, whoever they may be. So that, just touching upon that sort of like that success metric of being able to raise funding and then how much leading to how successful you think you are. There's a lot of talk online where the term they use is vanity metric. That's just there to either make yourself feel good or to show off on LinkedIn or Y Combinator or some other startup tech news site. We're saying you were able to raise X million dollars and now you're on the way to success. But that is, like you mentioned, the wrong way to sort of approach how your business is successful and where it's going. ideally, you don't want to raise because you have a business that is solid and can generate revenue. And the only time you do want to look for funding is to scale. You won't be able to hit that million customers unless you get this injection up front of you, then just go all out on marketing and get it to that point where you may do that, but it'll take you 6 years instead of doing it in the next 18 months.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's a tricky thing for people to see, because that's the number that people brandy about all over the internet on any article you ever read. I get an email update every week. Here's the 7 Australian startups that have raised $43 million this week or this month.
That's right. And I think my learning is that understanding the difference between like a deep tech startup where, you know, it's nearly impossible not to raise. So if you're doing like rocket lab research type things, or you're building some like deep tech science type related things, I think that's another whole ballpark in itself. And I think as a founder now, the world just becomes so collided in the sense that the success measure, like you said, is just about raising. Whereas for some companies, they need to raise. If you want to go and build this infrastructure and do that, and you need investors with deep pockets that can get on board with that, and they can see the upside and the vision of where the company's going to go, and also understand that it's completely high risk and it might just fall over. Whereas I think for most software companies, it's about just partnering with the right people. It's about having your tech person and having your tech founder on board. Either that's yourself or someone you need to find to partner with. And you hear that a lot, right? Like people go out and they raise money and then they spend it on tech and they do all these things. And that's all good, but at least get to that product market fit stage first, or at least do that research yourself, or find someone who can do that, can put a few hours in the business with you. So yeah, I think it's just knowing the stages. And like you said, getting it to the point where it's got product market fit, and then you raise the money to scale, because then it becomes a very rewarding thing. And the whole purpose is that you've got capital coming into the business that is fueling the growth of the business at a faster rate than what you could ever possibly do.
Yep.
And I think that's been for us, the biggest learn is knowing
that puts you in a better position as a founder to then negotiate as well. You're actually in a position of power at that point, because you don't need the money. You can turn a deal down. When you're looking for funding in that initial round, you're going to be desperate. You're going to make a worse deal. It's going to be better for the investor. You'll give away more equity than you want to. And then you mentioned if your back's in the corner and you just need that round to keep going, you'll just keep giving more away.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're better off having a smaller business with a higher margin where you own all of it.
Yes.
Than a huge pie where you have 1% because it's been diluted through so many rounds or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's right.
And on that deep tech, it's the equivalent of you building GoGenerosity versus you building Shopify.
Yes.
Shopify will need a large amount of funds. There's a lot of layers to it that people wouldn't even think about that are there unless you've actually built software. So that is required. I think Snapchat took 12 years to become revenue positive.
Yeah, wow.
Uber was 10. They're huge different platforms at a different level of scale that need different layers of infrastructure and teams and software. And they probably have 50 different software tools internally running that they built themselves to coordinate everything.
That's right.
So it's a different level of startup at that point. And then, as you mentioned, hardware or SpaceX or anything like that. It's a very different level of investment.
That's right. Yeah, 100%.
And now, so going back to where you touched on before, there was a few things I wanted to talk there, but you sort of covered most of them. But going in as a founder, as a non-tech founder, having experience in existing business, you're one of the two sort of founders that we've spoken to over the 200 odd episodes. There's someone who's in a domain experiencing a problem and goes and starts, or I think you probably fall into the latter, which is very successful in business, have an idea and pivot. And because you've got success, that gives you the confidence to then go and tackle the startup. Yeah,
that's right. So I think for us, for me, it was seeing the problem within my business and seeing how the impact space was really tough for businesses to do. Not only was it tough and challenging and time consuming and expensive, there wasn't then a nice way to turn it into an upside and turn it into a win-win. So being hands-on and running something and then coming up with the idea within that was obviously a bonus for me. I think, it's interesting how I look back now and how I stepped out and how I made the decision to sell my restaurants and do what I do. And I suppose it's, I don't know what I was thinking at the time, to be honest. It's one of those things where you go back and you're like, oh shit, I really did that. I think, I don't know what it's like for other founders who don't have that experience and then do it. I would assume it's still as nerve-wracking. I think you've got if anything, for me at the time, I probably had more to lose in the sense that because I'd come from a successful career and this is when our restaurants were at their peak, doing their best, we're earning the most income. That for me was then the biggest risk was, we're selling all of that and we're starting from rock bottom again, and then we're investing into our own business. I think I would have to think long and hard if I would do it again. I think that's whole, if GoGenerosity for whatever reason didn't work out, the idea of doing that and getting a startup off the ground, it's taxing. Yep. But I also think being naive and naiveness has been my friend. I think because I didn't know what to expect, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was like, hey, I've got an idea. Let's just take it to market. Surely anyone can do that.
Yep.
I think that was my superpower. And I think it is for a lot of entrepreneurs where if someone was to sit me down and say, hey, well, you're going to go through this, this, and this is how long it's going to take, and this is how much money you're going to need to put into it. Would I have done it? I'm not sure. I think for me, though, the product that we're out working is aligned with my values and my heart and the things I want to see unfold as well. So I think there's an argument which I might be like, oh no, I still would have done it because I believe in the outcome more so than just the process. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
I'm sure there's been a lot of ups and downs in between. You can probably fill another 20 hours of podcasts around all those little inflection points where you're probably up one night and thinking, did I actually want to go ahead with this? Or I'm so happy I did that move and I'm doing this. You probably flip-flop between the two as you've gone. And that's, like you mentioned, the naivety of not knowing how difficult it may be to try and do something. You might have been, all right, if we build it, they'll come. And it's just such a good idea. How can they not want to do it? Versus actually understanding who you're selling to, how to sell to them for them to understand it.
Yes.
And get it in front of them at the same time as well. There's a lot of marketing, which is, I think people miss as well. It's the message. Building it and they will come will never happen. That's a movie with Kevin Costner building a baseball field. It doesn't happen. You have to build a product that serves a real problem, is serving an actual group of people, whether they know it's a problem or not. And then you've got the other challenge of now educating the ones who don't know that that's a problem. Yeah. Or something they can benefit from.
100%. So I think you find some products. I've got a friend who has got a product called Order Editing. So it's a Shopify app. And they've built this app that enables customers to edit their order 30 minutes after the checkout. So this is not something that I thought there'd be a product for, because for me, I don't think I've ever had to edit my order. I think I've always checked the details just based on my personality type, but that's a major problem. People choose the green t-shirt instead of the blue one, and they then want to change it, or they enter the wrong address, or they enter the wrong credit card, or whatever it might be. And then that's a product that is a complete utility. It's a solution, and that then solves thousands of hours for brands, because now their team aren't having to change and edit the orders manually. It's all automated via this app. And so I think that's a difference where you've got a product like that where it's meeting and solving such a big problem that it then just takes off. And then you've got other products which is they're more probably nice to have. So like GoGenerosity, so for some people it's a must have, because for some businesses they 100% have to have impact. They've got to focus on that. They've got relationship with the charities, and then having our tool just makes that so easy, and they get so much more results from it. But for a lot of other businesses, they didn't know that they had a problem until we talked to them. And I think that's what you're saying, where you need that sales and marketing engine to be able to do that, because you've got to educate people that this, you do have a problem and we can solve that. Or even if you don't think you've got a problem, we've actually got something that's just got complete upside for you. Why wouldn't you do it? It's a no-brainer. So that underestimating that, I think, is a big one. But I think just knowing who your customer is and who to talk to is incredibly important. These are the things that you hear people just talk about all the time now, people with experience. But that's for me, is just knowing exactly who the customer is. The fact that we've chosen Shopify as our channel, that just makes life so much easier. Even being able to do outbound outreach, just knowing it's Shopify owners. There's so much technology now which enables you to get data from exactly who you're talking to, as opposed to having to fire out a shotgun approach and then hope that some people respond. You can be very specific. So I think that's really important in terms of gaining traction with customers.
And having your customer as the retailer who has a store on Shopify, I think you're in probably a unique spot with your product, because you've got a three-way marketplace. where you're not involved. Normally, there's the marketplace operator, which would be yourself, say in the case of eBay, and you've got a buyer and a seller, but
Yes.
you have the unique marketplace, as I'm terming it right now, which is a consumer who's buying something from a brand who has enabled that product or enabled the effective marketplace, a chosen charity on the other end, and then the benefit ultimately goes back to the marketplace. It's not given to the charity per se.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so for us, that was all. That's probably what took us so long as well, trying to figure out who our customer was, because we actually have multiple customers, and I think what we had to come down to was like, who is our paying customer? Okay, well, the paying customer for us is the business, it's the merchant. They pay us a monthly fee. They're the ones that are using our technology to enable their customers to donate. So we effectively are a B2B to C product, so the consumer interacts with our product. So we've got to make sure that the UX and the experience with all of that is just, bang on, and it fits within the theme of the merchant. But ultimately the merchant is our customer. They're the ones that are paying us. And so, but that took us a bit of time to figure out. We, in the early days, we thought that we would have to educate the consumer. We thought, there's no way you could just add this widget to a customer's website without trying to educate to the consumer first. So we actually spent quite a bit of money in just general consumer advertising, which then once we realized and once we started testing the data behind it, the consumer doesn't need to know anything about GoGenerosity because their trust is with the business and often with the charity. So when a consumer goes on to their trusted place, which is the business and where they shop, and then they see that business is supporting XYZ charity, and that charity is recognizable to them, now they've got trust. We just enforce and enable the trust because we're a third party that has built that experience. And that's one thing that I think a lot of businesses don't understand. Like you said, there's PayPal that has a roundup and there's various things. Now they've got a trust, they might have a trusted brand, but they're not experts in giving. They're not experts in generosity. So I think we've got to be really careful. And I think what we're going to find over time is that consumers will start asking for that mark of trust more, because what's to say that PayPal or the local supermarket, whoever takes the money for the consumer, there's no proof to say that they're passing it on or that they're, so I think having a third party verify that, like, hey, we power this, we enable this, this is where it goes, this is what it does, just then enforces that even more. But I think the main thing is, the consumer with the brand and the charity that brings that trust. So yeah, for us, it was just understanding who our customer was. Our charities are our customers as well, but in a very different way. Like, they don't pay us, they just become beneficiaries to the platform, which is a really easy thing. If anything, the charities has become our sales team. So the charities go and talk to other merchants wanting them to install our product so they can become beneficiaries to get more product. That's right.
The platform. It's a challenging point sometimes to understand who are your users and who's your customer. Yeah, because your ultimate end user is not paying for the platform.
No.
But has to provide some value either to them or to the business providing that to their users.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then these are all unique challenges that you have to figure out on your own path as you go through and work and design your product.
That's right.
So what's on the cards for the next 6 to 12 months for GoGenerosity? Like, is there anything you can talk about and just let everyone know about what's coming or directions?
Yeah, so for us being a New Zealand-based company, we've gradually just pushed out into Australia, to the US, and to the UK, and that's been more based on the fact that we've had New Zealand customers or an Australian customer who's had site. They've also got a US side or a UK side or whatever it might be. So we haven't actively pursued those markets. So this year, we're very much pursuing Australia. So I'll be in Australia a lot more, just going to different roadshows, conferences, things like that. But we're really ramping up our outbound, sales and marketing efforts to that market. And then the US is a huge market for us. So the US alone has over 1.2 million Shopify stores that are all powered from the US. And then being the fact that we focus on impact, we see this being a real no-brainer for the US market and just their culture and what they stand for. So so next 6 to 12 months, like, real focus in the next 6 months is Australia. And then from there on, we will just be looking at how we can push it out. So our app currently is live in the UK, the US, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. So it can be downloaded and activated in any of those regions. But we're just not we haven't actively pursued those markets until now.
Well, it's exciting times ahead once you start going international. You get in different time zones and the markets completely open up.
Yeah.
If anyone else wants to find out more about GoGenerosity, how can they reach out to you or find out more?
Yeah, so just www.gogenerosity.com. They can obviously just check out the information there or go onto the App Store, the Shopify App Store, and just search up GoGenerosity and they'll see the app there.
Cool. And as usual, we'll drop all of that into the show notes so everyone can find you easily and hopefully you can get a couple more installs and someone else can help make some impact.
Right.
Rohan, it's been a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you for making your time today. And I love the concept and looking forward to seeing where you go.
Awesome. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for that. Bye.